We are back with celebrity historian Raffi Andonian again, and it's the time of year for love. We're talking about Valentine's Day, chocolate, how all of that came to be. Welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Of course, I love being here.
So we were visiting in the break here. We were talking about different notions of love over time and how that has changed. What do you have to say?
I think that's fascinating because we think of love as universal, right? But it kind of is, kind of isn't. Like, history to me is about change over time. We're products of our time, and we have a sense of how we are and what our being is, and love is a sense of being. So as notions of changes, notions of who we are have changed, so has notions of love. So it's a really fascinating few examples we'll give just for kind of, a taste of how diverse this could be. So in ancient Greece, we're talking even before Socrates, for example, a long time ago, you're looking at love, there's this notion of strife and recovery and these transitional phases. That's love. Has to do with the cosmos. This is what tied into love. But when Socrates came around, and actually Plato writes about this in Symposium, a very famous work where he has 7 conversations with 7 people about what love means, and they all have different examples. What's some of the examples in there? One is about citizenship, right? One is about being a good citizen and what that means. One of them is about sort of this notion of heavenly versus earthly love and how you should suppress the earthly love, because if you're just, being dominated by the earthly love, then you're not truly free, and that's being a slave in their eyes to those passions. And then you have a different notion where he starts to quote Socrates, and Socrates' love is discovering of the self. And I think some of those notions we still have today.
Yes, and another thing that I think of when I think of Valentine's Day is chocolate. You brought a great example of chocolate here. We've got one of our favorite local brands, Markham and Fitz, represented right here. But we were also talking about just chocolate throughout the ages and how that came to be.
Well, chocolate also is a great example of how it changed. I do think that we are going through a renaissance of chocolate history, if you want to call it that, and a great local example here that represents the larger sort of proliferation of local craft chocolates that are very carefully made. But it wasn't always that way, right? So for example, of course chocolate goes back to Central and South America thousands of years, but what I find fascinating is the different ways it was used.
Okay.
So the Mayans, for example, they're not the first people to use them. There's evidence of the Olmecs before them using it, but the Mayans are using it as an everyday kind of thing. And it's very bitter, what they would be having. Bitter with chili peppers often in it.
Interesting.
Which I love. Think about mole today, which mixes chocolate and peppers. That's kind of an homage to them. Where does it come from? Comes to the southern part of Mexico. It makes sense. They're drawing upon thousands of years of that tradition. Goes really well together. But in the 20th century, with the rise of the late 19th and into the 20th century, with the rise of the popular candy bar companies that are still around, like Mars and others, right? That's when you get the creamier, softer chocolates. And what we call chocolate now actually had much more than just chocolate in it. Think of Snickers bars and all these things. They have all kinds of stuff in it. We would call it chocolate, but really it has a lot of other stuff in it, not just chocolate. And I think that what we're seeing here locally is, in a way, a response to that, because some people said, that's not really chocolate. There's a lot of sugar. There's all kinds of other added stuff in it. What if I'm a purist and I want a chocolate and I want the rich chocolate favorites to use a different cacao bean? That's what you have an example of right here, and that's what we're experiencing and observing right now today.
And I'm so glad we are, talking about the history of love, but also the history of chocolate. One thing that stays true is chocolate was delicious back in the day, and it's still delicious today.
I love it both ways. We've got to try one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Oh, man. That is so good.
I don't even normally like truffles. These are amazing truffles.
Amazing truffles. Markham and Fitz, you do it upright. Thank you, Raffi, for joining us, filling us in all that history. You can find him at celebrityhistorian.com. And stick around, we got more fun, maybe more chocolate, happening later.